All right, so let's go through, try and do this quickly. Issurei Biah, chapter 13. Halacha 1. Israel entered the covenant with God with three acts: circumcision, immersion, and offering a sacrifice. Halacha 2. Circumcision took place in Egypt before the paschal sacrifice, of which Exodus 12:48 says, "No uncircumcised person shall take partake of it." Moses, our teacher, circumcised the people, for with the exception of the tribe of Levi, the entire people neglected the covenant of circumcision in Egypt. Regarding this, Deuteronomy praises the Levites, saying they upheld your covenant. So, reminder: the covenant is not the circumcision. Circumcision is the sign of the covenant. And Abraham was commanded to have everyone in his camp circumcised. And as we see, they didn't keep it except for the Levites, which is why Torah tells us again to circumcise. Because if they would have kept it, then they wouldn't need to be told again. But it was only the Levites that did. Halacha 3. Immersion was performed in the desert before the giving of the Torah, as Exodus states, "Sanctify them today and tomorrow, and have them wash their garments." Sacrifices were also offered then, as it states in the same place, "And he sent out the youth of the children of Israel, and they brought burnt offerings. They offered them as agents of the entire people." So the code language here is, it says, "Have them wash their garments." So we take that to mean it wasn't just their clothes that were washed, that they actually immersed themselves in a mikvah. So this is where the mikvah comes from. Halacha 4. Similarly, for all future generations, that includes today, we are a future generation. When a Gentile desires to enter into the covenant, take shelter under the wings of the divine presence, and accept the yoke of Torah, he must undergo circumcision, immersion, and the offering of a sacrifice. And a woman who converts must undergo immersion and bring a sacrifice. As Numbers 15:15 teaches, "As it is for you, so shall it be for the convert." Meaning, just as you, the people of Mount Sinai, entered the covenant with circumcision, immersion, and the offering of a sacrifice, so too, for future generations, a convert must undergo circumcision, immersion, and must bring a sacrifice. Um, and a little commentary there on the circumcision is that if he had been circumcised as a Gentile, a small amount of blood must be drawn from him for the sake of conversion. This is called hatafat ambrit. Obviously, this only applies to men because women are not circumcised. So, these are the three requirements: sacrifice, immersion in a mikvah, and korban, sacrifice. This is halacha 5. What is the sacrifice that a convert is required to bring? A burnt offering of an animal, or two turtle doves, or two fledgling doves. Both the doves must be brought as burnt offerings. In the present age, which is not just the time of this writing, but it includes today, when there are no sacrifices because we don't have a temple, a convert must undergo circumcision and immersion. When the temple is rebuilt, he must bring a sacrifice. So there's a little commentary here on that. Yevamot 46a quotes an opinion which requires the convert to actually set aside the money. The reason being, if the temple is rebuilt in our lifetime, then as a convert, you still owe that sacrifice that you're required to bring. So there's an opinion in the Talmud that says you should set aside the money, so that if that happens, you'll have the money there ready to complete that part. The Talmud's conclusion, however, is that it would be undesirable to do so, to set aside the funds, lest the funds be used for other purposes which would be a transgression. It must be emphasized that even before the convert brings a sacrifice, he is considered as a full-fledged member of the Jewish people. So this is not a debate that's unresolved. It's resolved. Because we don't have a temple, that part we cannot do, but you're still a full member of the Jewish community. And if the temple is rebuilt in our day, then all converts will be required to bring that, but funding for that does not have to be set aside. So, Halacha 6. When a convert is circumcised but does not immerse himself, or immerses himself but was not circumcised, he is not considered a convert until he performs both of these activities. He must immerse himself in the presence of 3 men. Since a court is required, he may not immerse on Shabbat or festivals or during the night. If, however, they had him immerse at night, he is a convert. Meaning, this is the ideal way to do it. At nighttime would be less than ideal, but if it's done at night, he's still a convert. It's a valid conversion. So I think the idea behind this is because courts convene during the day, that if what they were doing carried over into the night, then you wouldn't invalidate the conversion. And we're going to see it's really almost impossible to invalidate a conversion. Once a conversion happens, there's no undoing it. There's one exception for children, which we're going to see when that comes up. Halacha 7. Actually, here it is. We immerse a minor who seeks to convert based upon the guidance of the court, for it is an advantage for a person to convert. Um, let's go ahead and read the commentary on that. 12 and 13. We immerse a minor who seeks to convert based upon the guidance of the court. That's footnote number 12, which says conversion, a change in status, must be brought about through a conscious decision by the convert. A minor is not considered as able to make mature decisions and is not held responsible for his conduct. Therefore, he cannot make the decision to convert. Nevertheless, the Jewish court makes the decision on his behalf. So an adult is obviously making the decision to convert. So they are consenting to this conversion. This is consent that a child cannot give. So the court is deciding to convert the child. The converted child, however, has the option of refuting the conversion when he comes of age. And by that, it means bar bat mitzvah age. If he protests his conversion at that time, he is considered a Gentile and need not observe the mitzvot. If, however, he accepts his conversion when he comes of age, but regrets it afterwards, he is bound by his original decision. So this is pretty much the only way that you could reverse a conversion. You know, there's a saying that a Jew is a Jew is a Jew, which means once you're in, there's no way out. You can't just change your mind later and say, I want to go back to being a Gentile. It doesn't work that way. This is the exception. Someone who was converted as a child, they have an opportunity at bar bat mitzvah. They can say, I don't want this. They can return to a Gentile status. If they say at this time, I accept the conversion that was done on my behalf, they cannot later change their mind. They become just like every other halakhic Jew that was converted or born Jewish. As we learned in the one example that I gave in the last video, the introduction to the laws of conversion to Judaism, there is no difference between a born Jew and someone who was converted halakhically with regards to all matters of Jewish observance. So if they don't reject the conversion that was done on their behalf at this time, they can't reject it later. That's the only way out for them. So back to Halacha 7. we immerse a minor who seeks to convert based upon the guidance of the court. We just read that. For it is an advantage for a person to convert. Footnote 13. A person cannot act on another person's behalf unless it is considered to his benefit. But our sages consider becoming a part of the Jewish people a benefit, sufficient to justify their actions. So this is saying we don't need permission to do something nice for somebody. So in the situations where there's a child, this is why we're allowed to act on their behalf. We're doing something for their benefit, something that's good for them, which shows it's good to be Jewish. It's better than remaining a Gentile. So we're actually doing something nice for people by converting them. So let's continue with the same Halacha 7. When a pregnant woman converts and immerses herself, her child does not require immersion. So this is because when a Jewish woman gives birth to a child, that child is legally considered Jewish, just like here in America. If a woman immigrates to America and becomes an American citizen, and then she has a child, that child is born as an American. So that child doesn't have to go through an immigration process. Legally, that child is an American citizen. This is the same thing. When she converts, she becomes fully Jewish. So her child is considered Jewish. This is talking about not a woman who has a child and then the woman converts. This is once she enters the Jewish status, then legally any child she has after this conversion will be considered Jewish because there's no difference between her and a woman that was born Jewish. So when a convert immerses himself alone and converts alone, or even if he does this in the presence of two persons, his conversion is not valid because a court is considered three judges. So if he immerses himself alone, this would be with no witnesses. Or even if he does this in the presence of two persons, his conversion is not valid. Let's look at the footnote on that. For as mentioned in the previous halakha, three judges must be present. So this is Rambam's opinion that the Bet Din must have three people. However, the Shulchan Aruch, which comes after Mishneh Torah, has a little bit of a different perspective. So the Rambam's perspective is not accepted by all authorities. Rambam's perspective being that the court requires three. Rabbeinu Asher maintains that the requirement only applies at the outset. After the fact, b'diavad, if a Gentile circumcised himself and immersed on his own, the immersion is acceptable, provided he accepted the mitzvot in the presence of three Jews. The Shulchan Aruch in Yoreh De'ah 268 mentions both opinions, but appears to favor that of Rabbeinu Asher. So what's the opinion of Rabbeinu Asher? That the requirement applies at the outset. But after the fact, if a person is already converted, even if the Gentile circumcised and immersed on his own, the immersion is acceptable, provided that three Jews were present when he accepted the mitzvot. Meaning, if you had the three, which is Rambam's opinion that you have to have three on the court, the Bet Din, there's rules to who qualifies to be on a Bet Din. So if you had three and two of them were related, you could disqualify one of them, and that still leaves you with two. According to the Shulchan Aruch, that would be after the fact. That would still be a kosher conversion, which the Shulchan Aruch is the more popular version that everybody claims to go by. So Rambam is a little more strict in requiring three, but if you're dealing with people that say they're going by the Shulchan Aruch and you've already converted, two would be the only requirement. Okay, Halacha 8. The following rules would apply if he was married to a native-born Jewess or a convert and he already fathered children. If he says, I converted alone, his word is accepted with regard to his own disqualification. Now, why would he be disqualified if he says I converted alone? Then there were no witnesses. That's why he would disqualify his own conversion, but not with regard to the disqualification of his children. Why can't he disqualify the conversion of his children? Because it says if he was married to a native born Jewess or a convert and he already fathered children, you can't disqualify them because she was a native born Jewess or she converted, which means that when he fathered children with her, those children are Jewish. So even though he says he's not really a valid convert because he disqualified himself by saying that, my conversion process wasn't legally done right, it wasn't done in front of witnesses because he converted alone, he can't disqualify his children because his children's mother is Jewish. That means they are Jewish. He must immerse himself again in the presence of a court. Because he disqualified himself, he said, I didn't have a bet din that witnessed the conversion. His conversion would be disqualified. So he must immerse himself again in the presence of a court. He would basically have to go through the conversion process, which is just immerse himself again in the presence of a court. That's the process. Halacha 9. The following laws apply with regard to a female convert who we see conducting herself according to the ways of Israel at all times. For example, she immerses herself after being a nida. She separates teruma from the dough or the like. And to a male convert who follows the paths of Israel, for example, he immerses himself after seminal emission and performs all the mitzvot. These are considered as righteous converts even though there are no witnesses to testify before whom they converted. Nevertheless, so this is where the custom comes from. If you see people coming in and they're following the customs, they come into your shul, they've got a talit, a kippah, they know how to daven. This is why we're to give them an aliyah, because we're to assume that these people are Jewish. There's a stricter standard, however, if you want to marry into the Jewish people. And this is what we see when it continues. Nevertheless, if they seek to become intermingled among the Jewish people, we do not allow them to marry unless they bring witnesses or they immerse themselves in our presence. Because if they immerse in our presence, then we know they are now legally Jewish. The rationale is that their identity was originally established as Gentiles. So, your word is to be believed that you converted, but if you want to marry, then we're going to require proof. Halacha 10. If, however, a person comes and says that he was a Gentile, but that he was converted by a court, his word is accepted. The rationale is that the mouth that forbade him was the same mouth that permitted him. So, what does this mean? The mouth that forbade him, this is a person that comes and says he was a Gentile. That's what forbade you from marrying. But when you said that you were converted by a court, his word is accepted. That is the mouth that permitted him. So let's look at the commentary, what this says here, because there's a legal term that you might want to know. So if we knew nothing about a person's identity before he came before us, when a person comes in, you see him following the customs, we assume he's Jewish. He was the one that raised the doubt whether he was Jewish by saying that he was a convert. The fact that you're saying that you're a convert means at some point you were not Jewish until you converted. So he said at some point he's a convert, and he resolved it by saying that he converted in a proper court. This follows the principle of migo. That is the legal term. And the example of that is if he desired to lie, he could have told a more effective lie, saying that he was a native born Israelite. So if you said you were a native-born Israelite, for sure you would be assumed, okay, this is a proper Jew. A native-born Israelite comes in, knows the laws, following the customs. There would be no doubt. But because you said you were a convert, because you said that at some point you were a Gentile, you raised the doubt, and then you resolved the doubt. This is why you're believed. Because if you wanted to lie, you would have said you were native born. But because you were honest and said that at some point you were a Gentile, we know you're an honest person, and so you are to be believed that you're telling the truth. You were converted by a proper court. So this is why it's to be accepted. If a person comes and says that he was a Gentile, but he was converted by a court, his word is accepted. The exception to this is when a person comes to marry, then we're going to require proof. Okay. So we are still on Halacha 10. When does the above apply? In Eretz Israel, in the Talmudic era. This is Rambam's explanation. For at that time, all the people there could be assumed to be Jewish. So in America, Jews are not a majority of the population. So if you're walking around, you're more likely to run into a Gentile than a Jew. In the Talmudic era, almost everybody there was Jewish. So a stranger is most likely to be Jewish. So according to Rambam here, in the diaspora, however, he must bring proof of conversion. So that's Rambam's opinion that you would be believed in the land of Israel in the Talmudic era, but in the diaspora, he finds it reasonable that to ask for proof of conversion. Now let's look at the commentary because everybody says Rambam's not the end all be all. Okay, so what's the commentary say? The Ravad differs with the Rambam, explaining that there are two Talmudic opinions. One that accepts the convert's word, both in the land of Israel and in the diaspora. That's one opinion. And the other opinion is one that requires him to bring proof in both places, the land and in the diaspora. Similarly, the Ramban, this is Nachmanides, and the Rashba differ and maintain that the convert's word is accepted in all places, the land of Israel and outside the land. So there's different opinions. The Shulchan Aruch in Yoreh De'ah 268, it mentions the Rambam's view. What is the Rambam's view that Shulchan Aruch is mentioning? That the convert's word is to be believed in the land of Israel in the Talmudic era, but in the diaspora, if you say you're a convert, then you should bring proof. So Shulchan Aruch mentions that, but appears to follow that of Ramban and the Rashba. Again, what's the opinion of the Ramban and the Rashba? They maintain that the convert's word is accepted in all places. Meaning, if you follow the Shulchan Aruch, or if you go into a place and your rabbi says this is what they go by, the Shulchan Aruch, well, according to the Shulchan Aruch, your word that you converted is to be accepted. If you're going by what the Shulchan Aruch says, meaning you don't have to bring proof. Now, if you converted, you should have proof. But this concept that we can't count you in a minyan unless you bring proof. If a stranger walks in and they see him following the customs, you're not supposed to stop the service and ask, "Are you Jewish?" The Shulchan Aruch says it's praiseworthy to give this person, assume that they're Jewish, and give them an aliyah up to the Torah. So what happens if you find out, well, this person came in with a talit and a kippah and he's speaking Hebrew, he knows how to daven. I assumed he was Jewish. I gave him an aliyah. What happens if afterwards you find out this person's not Jewish? What consequence is there? None. So to follow the Shulchan Aruch, you are not required to bring proof for this person. And you can give them an aliyah and count them in a minyan for sure. It's only when they want to come marry that then we need to investigate and make sure that we're not marrying a Jew to a non-Jew. So today, the custom is for a court to be careful and investigate a convert's conversion before allowing him to marry among the Jewish people. So again, whenever you're looking to marry into the Jewish people, that for sure you can expect, according to all opinions, is going to require proof. Either proof that your mother was Jewish, like a birth certificate, at least a ketubah from your parents, or a certificate of conversion. Halacha 11. Just as we circumcise. Oh, let me finish with 12 there. Only afterwards may he marry a Jewess, if you're looking to marry, to provide the proof. I say that this is an additional stringency adopted to protect the purity of our lineage. So Halacha 11. Just as we circumcise and immerse converts, so too we circumcise and immerse servants who are acquired from the Gentiles for the sake of servitude. Now, we don't have servants that we are purchasing from Gentiles for the sake of servitude today. So that practice is not happening. So for something like this, I'm only reading this halakha just to demonstrate how the law works. This is not saying, okay, we can go out and purchase slaves and this is the procedure. This is during a time when that was happening. So when a person acquires a servant from the Gentiles, and the Gentile takes the initiative and immerses with the intent of becoming a free man, he acquires his own person, provided he says while immersing, "Behold, I am immersing before you for the sake of conversion." Um, if he immerses himself in the presence of his master, he does not have to make an explicit statement. Instead, since he immersed himself, he attains his freedom. Meaning, if he's a slave and he immerses in the water for the sake of getting freedom, for the sake of conversion, he becomes a Jew. He becomes converted, and that's why he gets his freedom. So the way that they used to bathe their slaves was that they would put a chain around their neck. That way, when they would go to the water, they couldn't go. It wasn't long enough for them to go all the way under, because if they went all the way under, then they would get their freedom and they would become Jewish if they were immersing in the mikvah for the purpose of conversion. That's what they would have to say. So for this reason, when having a servant immerse, the master must push him into the water. So they would put their hands on them to demonstrate you are not a free person. I am immersing you, to show this is the difference between you immersing to become free and being dunked against your will. So for this reason, when having the servant immerse, the master must push him into the water until he emerges, at which time he is in the master's servitude. He must tell him that he is having him immerse for the sake of servitude in the presence of the judges. A servant must also immerse only in the presence of 3 judges and during the day as a convert, for it is a partial conversion. Today, we only have full converts and Gentiles. There is no partial conversion, no quasi Jews. You're either, if you were a Gentile, you either remain a Gentile or you convert to Judaism. There's no stepping stone, there's no middle process. Well, I'm not a Jew because I didn't convert, but I'm not like the Gentiles. I'm some step in between. Like there's this Noahide movement that was invented by rabbis. It's become popular recently. We don't accept Ger Toshavim today. So we don't have Yovel. So we'll learn about that in another chapter. So today we only have full converts and Gentiles. That's it. So Halacha 12. When a servant is freed, he must immerse himself a second time in the presence of 3 men during the day. This is the Bet Din, the presence of the 3 men. For through this act, his conversion is completed and his status becomes that of a Jew. So they're going to witness him immerse in a mikvah, and that completes the process. It is not necessary for him to accept the mitzvot and for the judges to inform him of the fundamentals of the faith, for they already informed him when he immersed himself for the sake of servitude. Halacha 13. Converts, servants, and freed servants must be immersed in a mikvah that is acceptable for a nida to immerse in. All of the substances that disqualify her immersion because they intervene between the water and her flesh disqualify the immersion of converts, servants, and freed servants. So she won't be wearing jewelry because we don't want the water to not be able to cover every bit of your flesh because the jewelry is in the way. When circumcision is done, we're going to learn for the hatafat brit. That's the only reason why we would wait to do the mikvah immediately. Because if the healing of the circumcision has not done and it requires a bandage, the bandage would be, how did they articulate this? It would intervene between the water and their flesh. So we don't want there to be a bandage. And also, um, we don't want there to be any type of infection or anything. So we want the circumcision to be healed. But any mikvah that's acceptable for a nida to immerse in, this is an acceptable mikvah that you can use for immersing as a convert. And we can learn the laws of mikvot, but I'll tell you, the most kosher mikvah in the world is just a natural body of water. Halacha 14. Okay, so this is going to discuss Samson. We're familiar with Samson and Delilah, Philistine. And it's going to talk about King Solomon, who married lots of women. You know, I forget the exact number, 700 wives or whatever. So it's going to give you a perspective that the Tanakh says, okay, and then it's going to give you the perspective from the Halacha. So it might get a little confusing here, but over these next couple, it's gonna explain that here. So one should not think that Samson, who saved the Jewish people, and Solomon, king of Israel, who was called the friend of God, married Gentile women who did not convert. So remember in Tanakh, you know, it kind of says that they did, but this is explaining that actually these women converted. King Solomon was converting them as he was marrying them. Instead, the matter can be explained as follows. The proper way of performing the mitzvah is that when a male or female prospective convert comes, we inspect his motives for conversions. Perhaps he is coming for the sake of financial gain in order to receive a position of authority. Or and keep in mind footnote 34. I'm going to read that to you in a minute. Or he desires to enter our faith because of fear. For a man, we check whether he focused his attention on a Jewish woman. For a woman, we check whether she focused her attention on a Jewish youth. This is saying if a man is focusing his attention on a Jewish woman, is he trying to marry is he trying to convert for marriage? If we find no ulterior motive, we inform them of the heaviness of the yoke of the Torah and the difficulty the common people have in observing it, so that they will abandon their desire. That's all we say to them. It's difficult for the common people to keep all of the mitzvot. If they accept this introduction and do not abandon their resolve, and thus we see that they are motivated by love, we accept them. And then it quotes the book of Ruth here. It says, and she saw that she was exerting herself to continue with her, and she ceased speaking with her. So this is saying that at first Naomi tried to dissuade Ruth from converting. When, however, she saw sincerity, she allowed her to join. So this is making the claim that I'm sure you're familiar with, that Ruth converted along the way with Naomi. However, it's not so clear when Ruth actually converted. She was married to Naomi's son, so she married a Jew before she went on the way. If you accept this rendition, that she converted along the way, then one has to ask why, after she got to a destination, Did she say, I'm a Moabitess? I'm prohibited from being allowed to marry. So it would seem that this is where we get the story from, that the prohibition from the Torah, which says that Moabites are not allowed to marry in, was violated and she converted. So then there's a debate about how does that come to be. So an explanation that's given is that the prohibition for Moabites only applies to men, even though the Torah says Moabites, period, and that it didn't apply to women. But then there's an explanation given that it says that he assembled the men together to announce the marriage. So there's theories that this is when he declared that the law would only be applied to men. Either way, separate topic. There's a whole class in the book of Ruth that describes this, so it's not really clear when she converted. But when we see that they are motivated by love, we accept them. Okay, so there's no halakha to turn them away. Certainly not 3 times. There's a minhag today, a custom and tradition. People cite the book of Ruth as that's, but we don't paskin halakha from the book of Ruth. That we covered how halakha functions in the last video in the introduction. So I want to go back to this footnote, number 34. So I'll start from the beginning of that sentence. The proper way of performing the mitzvah is that when a male or female prospective convert comes, we inspect his motives for conversion. Perhaps he's coming for the sake of financial gain in order to receive a position of authority. And here's where we find the footnote. Tosafot cites the narrative found in Shabbat 31a, which relates that a Gentile came to Hillel and asked him to convert him on the condition that he become the high priest. Hillel agreed. You would think today, you go to some rabbis, I'll convert on the condition that, this, that, or the other. They're probably not going to do it. But we see Hillel was not just some rabbi, he was the gadol of his generation. He converted him. So it gives us an explanation as to why that is. So he told Hillel he'll convert on the condition that he become the high priest. Hillel agreed. Later, the convert discovered the error of his ways, meaning he said, this was not the right way to come in. I was wrong to do it that way with this ulterior motive. So he realized that that was wrong, and he accepted Jewish practice genuinely. Meaning, not only did Hillel convert him with ulterior motives, after he was converted, he seen the error of his ways and then accepted Jewish practice, meaning he was converted and didn't even accept all the mitzvot and was not frum, but he was converted. So Tosafot explains that from the outset, Hillel recognized his potential sincerity and therefore accepted him, even though originally his motives were self-oriented. So as we see from this story, Hillel said, you're coming with ulterior motives, but I suspect your potential sincerity. And Hillel converted him. So now if you are watching this and you have the desire to convert and you are sincere and a rabbi doesn't want to convert you, my question would be, Hillel would have converted this person. Are you more frum than Chazal? You're somehow raising the bar higher than Hillel. This convert who came with ulterior motives was converted, and the Sanhedrin accepted him. Now you're going to say, who is the Sanhedrin to decide who gets converted? You know better than the Sanhedrin. So the Beit Hadash and the Sifri Cohen state that Hillel's example may be emulated, and the Jewish courts have a prerogative of making a decision to accept the convert, even though at the outset he seeks to convert for ulterior motives. So not only does the court have the right to say, I'm going to convert this person, but we're going to see later in the halakha, not the commentary, not the opinions, we're going to see the actual halakha that says if a person did convert with ulterior motives, that this is a Jew. And it continues to say he is allowed to marry, his kiddushin is valid. He's allowed to marry into the Jewish people, even though we know he had ulterior motives. Now, maybe you personally would not convert this person, but the fact that somebody converted him means legally he is a Jew, which is not, he may be an apostate, which may not be a practicing Jew, but an apostate Jew is not a non Jew. If he converted, he is a Jew. And there is no difference between a converted Jew and a born Jew with regards to, what applies to him. So if he converted, he is halakhically Jewish and allowed to marry into the Jewish people. So halakha 15. Now this is where we're going to get into when it says the court, it means the Sanhedrin during the time of King David and King Solomon. So keep that in mind during this halakha. For this reason, the court, meaning the Sanhedrin, did not accept converts throughout the reign of David and Solomon, meaning they did not accept converts into the court, so they were not performing conversions during the time of King David and during the time of King Solomon for different reasons, two separate reasons. One reason for the time of King David and a different reason for the time of King Solomon. So in David's time, they feared that they sought to convert because of fear. During the reign of King David, Israel was a mighty nation. They were afraid that people were going to convert out of fear, that they would be conquered, and it will be better for us if we join you. If you can't beat them, join them. So they figured it would be better to convert and join them instead of being destroyed as an enemy. So this is why the Sanhedrin felt that in King David's time, people would be converting out of fear. And in King Solomon's time, they feared that they were motivated by the sovereignty and prosperity and eminence which Israel enjoyed. At this time, the prosperity in King Solomon's time, Israel was the most prosperous place on the planet. So they thought this is why, economic opportunities, they thought this is why people would be converting. So this is why during these times, King David's time and King Solomon's time, the Sanhedrin was concerned about people's motives for converting. And that's why the Sanhedrin wasn't performing conversions during that time period. They refrained from accepting such converts because a Gentile who seeks to convert because of the vanities of this material world is not a righteous convert. So they questioned the motives of the people that wanted to convert. Nevertheless, this is still Halacha 15. There were many people who converted in the presence of ordinary people. So this is a Hedyatot, 3 ordinary people during the era of David and Solomon. So we see here the Sanhedrin in the court was not performing conversions, but there was bet deans being put together of ordinary people that were performing conversions, since the court was not. The Supreme Sanhedrin would view them with skepticism. Since they immersed themselves, they would not reject them. The fact that they did not reject them means they were accepted. They were viewed with skepticism. What does that mean? They were viewed with skepticism but not rejected. They would not draw them close until they saw what the outcome would be. What does that mean? So if these people converted with this bet din, let's look at the commentary to that. They wanted to see what the outcome would be, which is that would they accept Jewish practice genuinely? So the Shulchan Aruch in Yoredea 268 interprets this to mean that the conversion was effective. So according to the Shulchan Aruch, 3 people that convert on a bet din of 3 ordinary people, 3 hedyatot, the conversion is effective. And according to the Shulchan Aruch, these were accepted by the Sanhedrin. They are Jews and have all the privileges and responsibilities of the Jewish people. Nevertheless, as an initial and preferred option, our sages would not allow them to marry within the Jewish people and the like until they had established their sincere commitment to the Torah and its mitzvot. So we see, according to the Sanhedrin and the Shulchan Aruch, three people that convert with a bet din. I mean, people that convert with a bet din of three people. Shulchan Aruch even says, even b'diavad, looking back, if you have to disqualify one of them, even two people, that's a kosher conversion, and they were accepted by the Sanhedrin. So who is anybody today to say, I don't recognize a conversion that was done according to Halacha? According to the Halacha, that's according to the Mishneh Torah, according to the Shulchan Aruch, that was accepted by the Sanhedrin. So that's where we are. Halacha 16. Solomon converted women and married them. And similarly, Samson converted women and married them. It is well known that they converted only because of an ulterior motive, and that their conversion was not under the guidance of the court. How do we know that their conversion was done out of an ulterior motive? This is why the Tanakh considered them as if they were Gentiles, and they remained forbidden. Moreover, their conduct ultimately revealed their initial intent, for they would worship their false deities and build altars for them. That's how we know they had ulterior motives, because if their motives were sincere, they wouldn't be worshiping other deities. Excuse me. Therefore, the scriptures considered them as if Solomon built them, as Kings 11:7 states, and then Solomon built an altar. So this is taking the position, this is obviously bad, King Solomon building altars to pagan deities. So this is putting the blame on the wives, that they never gave up their previous religions, and that's why they wanted altars built to these deities. Okay, so Tanakh looks at them as forbidden women. This is saying that they were converted. They had ulterior motives, but they were converted, and their conduct explains how we know they had ulterior motives. So Halacha 17. When a court did not check a potential convert's background and did not inform him of the mitzvot and the punishment for the failure to observe the mitzvot, and he circumcised and immersed in the presence of three ordinary people, he is a convert, even if it is discovered that he converted for an ulterior motive. Since he circumcised himself and converted, he has departed from the category of Gentiles. So if he's not a Gentile, he's a Jew. And we view him with skepticism until his righteousness is revealed. Even if the convert worships false deities afterwards, he is like an apostate Jew. Again, an apostate Jew is not a non-Jew. Even if the convert worships false deities, he is like an apostate Jew. If he consecrates a woman, the consecration is valid. This is his kiddushin. So, what's the commentary to this? Hence, a get, a formal bill of divorce, is required before the woman can marry another Jew. Think about what this says. This says, even if it is discovered that he converted for an ulterior motive, since he circumcised himself and converted, he has departed from the category of Gentiles, and we view him with skepticism until his righteousness is revealed. Even if the convert worships false deities afterwards, he is like an apostate Jew. And if he consecrates a woman, the consecration is valid. Meaning that woman who now married a convert who's worshiping idols can't marry another Jew. until she gets a get, a bill of divorce from this person. That means this person with ulterior motives converted is legally Jewish, and she requires a get, a bill of divorce. And it is a mitzvah to return his lost object. This basic concept is that a convert who sins is considered a Jew who sins. Even if he or she commits serious transgressions, the conversion is not revoked. For since he immersed himself, he became a Jew. For this reason, Samson and Solomon maintained their wives even though their inner feelings were revealed. So, despite their sins, they remained a Jewess, even though they sinned, because they converted, and you can't undo it. So, what does it mean? Solomon maintained their wives even though their inner feelings were revealed. That, it says, i.e., their connection to idolatry. So, the last one here, I say Halacha 18. This is not really a Halacha, because a Halacha is a law. Okay, an opinion, midrashim, folklore and legend, that's not law. A law prescribes that you do this, you do not do that. So this is enumerated as number 18, but I don't really put this in the realm of halacha. So it says, for this reasons, our sages said. And let's go ahead and look at the commentary on this. For this reason, our sages said. 46. References Yevamot 47a. It must be emphasized that sincere converts are given the highest praise. In a renowned letter to a convert named Obadiah, the Rambam states, we, meaning native-born Jews, share a connection with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Your connection is with the one who spoke and created the world. So a convert, not being related through genealogy to Abraham, that's what this is saying. You, the convert who's sincere, you desire to have this relationship with Hashem. You are joining this covenant. So that's why they're given the highest praise. So back to number 18. For this reason, our sages said, converts are as difficult for the Jewish people to bear as a leprous blemish. That's not a law. There can be no law that says, well, the halakha is you're as difficult for the Jewish people to bear as a leprous blemish. So this is just a medrash here, a folklore and legend that converts are as difficult for people to bear as a leprous blemish. For most converts convert for ulterior motives and cause the Jews to err. So this is blaming converts for if the Jews err, we'll blame it on converts. You guys did it, not us. We would never do anything wrong, a native born. But it's because of you converts that we erred. It is difficult to separate from them once they have converted. Look at what happened in the desert at the worship of the golden calf. So what does the commentary on that say? Our sages explained that in both instances, it was the error of Rav, the mixed multitude of converts who accompanied the Jews out of Egypt, who enticed the people to perform these sins. So this is saying that no Hebrew, no native born would have any responsibility for building a golden calf. It was the mixed multitudes that enticed the native borns to do that. Wasn't Aaron a native born? Aaron played a pretty big role in the role of the golden calf incident. And if we remember, supposedly the mixed multitudes were, killed for that. Yet there they are again in the other incidents, complaining about not having meat to eat. So this is why this story is saying that converts are difficult. It's blaming anything bad on converts. So similarly, most of the complaints in the instances when our people tested God were instigated by the mixed multitude. So none of the instances when God was tested was because of native borns, because native borns would never do that. It's just passing the blame on to converts. And it's curious why this is happening here, because there's a famous letter to that convert where Rambam praises converts. And I think the actual question in the letter between Rambam and that convert was, can we say the Berecha, our father, can we say our father Abraham? Is he actually our father? And that's why Rambam responded that yes, you can absolutely say that as a convert. You have joined the Jewish people and you have the highest connection to Hashem because you chose this. You weren't just born into being related to Abraham. So that is Issurei Biah chapter 13. We will continue in the next video with Issurei Biah chapter 14, and we will learn exactly how to perform or how to witness a halakhic conversion.